But a lot of people are just
Yeah.
going so far down the line, building product, no validation. They think it's a great idea, and oftentimes there's some great things about it, but very little effort put on the front end to make sure they're building the right product. Not even sure who their audience is, not even sure how they might go to market with it. And these are things which, through the excitement of an idea, you want to get and build it out. But at the same time,
Yeah.
you spend 9 months with a couple guys building something, and there's no market for it.
Let's go.
We'd love to know if you've got any questions for today's guest. Please drop them below, or if you think of them during the show itself, please let us know, because that's what we're here for. It's an opportunity for you to be able to reach industry leaders and have direct one-on-one time with them, because that's something that's very hard to facilitate, because if you're trying to reach out to busy people, sometimes your emails don't get answered because their PR team may look over it and not respond. So basically, in this regard, to be able to get a hold of such fantastic people, then this is really a unique opportunity to do that. So if you do have any questions for him, please let us know. Hey, man, we're back.
Okay, let's see how long this lasts this time.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Craig. Really looking forward to it, and everyone at home is really looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Really excited.
Yeah, so everyone at home, Craig Swann. So he basically created one of the first music experiences on the web. So, man, I'd love to hear your story. Like, how did you get into that? What were you doing prior to entrepreneurship? So you're originally from New York, is that correct? You've moved to Adelaide?
Actually, originally, I'm pure Commonwealth. I grew up in Toronto, but spent almost the last decade in New York via Barcelona.
Okay.
So it's been a bit of a whirlwind last decade or so.
Awesome. That's cool. So what prompted the move?
To Adelaide, I could say the easy answer and say the election, but that wouldn't be totally true. We had two little ones growing up in Manhattan, and obviously with my partner growing up here in beautiful Glen Elg, and me growing up in Toronto, we're just used to like space and sky, and as much as New York's an amazing, fantastic place to be, it's probably better sans kids. So we decided, among other things, it was time for a change. It was the holiday season. In fact, I don't think we actually were focused on staying here for as long as we might be, but I just got really excited for what looks like the beginning of a hockey stick, perhaps, for the whole startup scene, for technology, for just a lot of exciting stuff that, space coming in. And so just decided to sort of stick around. I've met so many interesting people doing interesting stuff, and yeah, it's only been 3 months or so in, but I'm starting to get the bug.
That's phenomenal. No, that's excellent. So, yeah, I mean, Adelaide's a great place, and there's a reason that, people do tend to stick around. I mean, in some regards, it can be slow, but at the same time, it is growing, like it really is. And it's such a hub for many different things. We've got some fantastic wineries here and restaurants and things like that. So, definitely can't knock it.
No. Standard of life is right up there. There's no doubt about that for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. So, everyone at home, Craig Swann, he's had some fantastic experiences so far working with Forbes 500 companies with international marketing campaigns and many, many more things. So, Craig, let's jump right into it. So, what were you doing prior to entrepreneurship? I'd love to hear how you got started, and then really from creating such phenomenal things on the web. How did that come about?
Yeah. So, I grew up with computers when I was just a wee little one. I was running BBSs when I was 10 on a Commodore 64. So it's been a good chunk of my life online. But it wasn't until, I guess, 91 when the web was a thing. And I was at university at the time. So I was exposed to basically the internet. The World Wide Web was available to us. And at the same time, I was also an avid Grateful Dead fan, a Deadhead as they called them. And if people aren't familiar with who the Dead are, they were just a massive force of nature, gigantic community, big music base. And for me, the idea of the social music aspect of what they represented with their live shows and their culture and their community, and what this newfangled web thing was, I just was really excited about where those things may merge in the future, and decided, heck, I'll just drop out of university and chase that. Not
Why not?
Of course, that there was no web outside of the university system, so I kind of put myself in a pickle. But it forced me to pick up desktop publishing, way back in the day, when there's no layers in Photoshop, and picking up digital music production. And then come the mid-90s, I was just sort of, as soon as it was available in Toronto, I was just actively just living online, growing through a community, learning how to, there was no way to really learn the internet. You just had to be on it and just slowly hack away at it. And I just hacked away at it for months and months and months until I finally got the hang of it, started getting jobs. No one else was really doing it. and found myself very fortunate in the first, nascent years of the web to do stuff like redesigning the University of Toronto or the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, and doing a lot of sort of high profile events in Toronto. And the turning point really for me was a technology called Flash, which maybe for a lot of people it was the annoying thing that kept asking to update it. But it was really what created a lot of the user design patterns that we see today. It was when the web really was doing amazingly cool things that even today you still have a problem or a challenge doing. And I grew up in that community and just built as many kind of prototypes of the future as possible, with music being the main one, which led to building the first ever drag and drop interface website in like '99, and then a year later designing that same technology rolled itself into a drag and drop music experience, which was the first of its kind. And as you kind of mentioned too in your post, things kind of blew up when Steve Jobs happened to demo it when he launched the Safari browser to show how powerful it was. It kind of set me on a path where I was sort of instantly a thought leader in the interactive music space, interactive video, and just spent the next decade or so working with top global brands and agencies developing bespoke and interesting applications around engaging people through the power of music and interaction.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And yeah, for someone like Steve Jobs to basically show off your work is just, that in itself is massive. So congratulations.
Yeah, that's the huge nerd moment. I mean, there's probably nothing that will touch that. I mean, the man's obviously a legend. So
it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, but they don't tell you, right? You just watch. It was one of the first keynotes that they actually streamed back in 2003. And yeah, I mean, your jaw just drops. You're just like, they don't tell you that you're going to be featured in a demo there. So yeah, it was definitely one of those. Am I really believing what I'm seeing? This is insane.
Yeah, and what was the response to that? Like, as soon as the news landed that had occurred, like, how did it come about? Like, what happened then? Like, everyone did they come to you, or was more organically over time, or what happened?
I mean, definitely the inbound started coming in. I think people realized. I mean, we had also picked up a Webby Award that same year, which is probably how he had heard about it. So there was already a bit of a attention for what it was. But certainly that kind of made every sort of marketing director at every agency, every brand realize, hey, we could, slap our logo on this and do that. So basically it led to a lot of inbound. And then I began speaking internationally quite consistently for the next 5 or 6 years, wrote some books. So all that stuff, I think that's a big part of my success, was being very proactive in getting out there and taking advantage of an opportunity, harnessing it, and then taking it to the next level to open new doors and opportunities. But it's been a wild ride.
Absolutely.
Wild ride for sure. But for me, Ross, the real frustrating thing was we would do something, say for Bacardi DJ, and we would have, millions of kids coming on making beats, and then Q4 would come around and they'd just take the site offline. And I would be like, you've got millions of kids engaged, let's just prolong this campaign. But they didn't have that forward thinking about it in terms of engaging their consumers for a long period of time. They were just concerned on their marketing, objective. So for me, it was frustrating for a number of years building these amazing things that really empowered people that didn't have music capabilities to create music, and then have it taken away from them, and then they have nowhere to go until really the next thing that we would launch. So that kind of that was sort of the impetus for the last number of years to really rebuild the application as a platform to serve those people much better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because if it's an engaged audience and then it's just taken away, it's defeatist, because there's no long-term strategies there. So, to have that forward thinking is fantastic. And obviously you've been able to leverage that really, really well, in all your pursuits. So, congrats on that as well.
Cheers.
Yeah. So, I mean, what happened then? So from there, you started just building an empire as such. And how did you get into the international marketing space for Forbes companies?
Well, I think,
or Fortune 500 companies.
I mean, a lot of that came through speaking internationally. So I was doing, keynotes or conferences around the world where I was able to reach and tap into new audiences. And, I was really, my thing when speaking was, because I had the fortunate ability to be sort of a part of beta teams for what was Macromedia and then Adobe, and be playing with these new technologies, I was able to prototype a lot of things before they would be commonplace. So, I mean, I remember even accepting an award in like 2002 before there was a Skype, but using like technology such as this, 15 years ago, we were building that kind of technology, using sort of Macromedia technology. So the ability to sort of showcase a lot of interesting ideas and concepts. I was sort of known as this guy who would always prototype very interesting new capabilities with technology. And those would often find their ways where people would say, hey, we have an idea that we could incorporate this into a museum installation, or we have an idea that we could use this for a product or for something that we're working on. So it just found me doing really interesting stuff, from scoring and cutting videos for, Sprite commercials online, to working with Sony to do remix music inside the PSP. It was always kind of really interesting things that are usually first of their kind. And that's what I really enjoyed, is always trying to find something that was pushing the envelope, because a lot of people would rest on their laurels and just sort of keep cashing in on what they were known for. And for me, it was always, what do I do next? Like, I'd never written a book, so I want to start writing books, or I wanted to get into speaking, or I wanted to start doing events, or I wanted to build these new things. For me, that's a big part of growth, is to always put yourself into uncomfortable situations to force yourself to grow.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's about pushing the envelope and seeing what you can essentially get away with and grow and learn from. So in saying that, touching base on pushing the envelope, were there any spectacular failures that you had that were maybe really interesting ideas that you tried to move forward on and just crumpled to the ground? I mean, something like that is such a badge of honor, and kind of using that as your growth for personal development, or has it been smooth sailing the whole ride?
I mean, it's a great question, and I've been asked it a bunch of times, and I don't know whether the failures would be more about the way that you build your business and you learn about when you start scaling business. I mean, certainly I remember when a lot of success came, we scaled up the agency quite big, quite fast. And in hindsight, that was definitely, it was a failure at first, because I realized I'm kind of working with talented people, but I don't like them. Like, I needed to hire people.
Okay.
For me, it's very important. You spend more time with the people you work with in your own family. And a lot of people don't even really think about that. And for me, I was starting to realize these people do great work, but like, I don't like hanging around them as much as I would like to. But I was forced to kind of hire up to scale up to meet the demand of the services that we were offering. So seeing that kind of grow really quickly and scale up and get new office space, and then but choose to scale it back. I mean, ironically, the biggest successes I've ever had have been with no more than like a 3-person team. When we grew to almost 15 people, the numbers weren't even as good as when they've been 3. And I think that's just something you don't know until you go through it. And likewise with some other partnerships. I mean, sometimes it's more about the partnerships that you get into, whether it's a joint venture or whether it's your own business partnerships. Those are where I think I've seen the biggest quote unquote failures as a result of just going through those processes of how do you do a large scale JV, or how do you build out a secondary company when you already have a first, and try to balance that. So I think most of the failures that would come more from a human-to-human business relationship process more than any kind of like attempted technology, because a lot of the stuff is definitely pre-vetted from a product market fit. I mean, a lot of the stuff I've always done has always come from knowing there's a demand for what we're building. But I think the scaling is really can be a difficult thing if you don't have the right people.
Yeah, that's a great point, because if you are spending time with your team more than your family, then you really want to make sure you're in the right working environment and things like that. So I guess when you first started scaling up with a team, how did you know it was the right time to try and scale?
Well, I don't know if it's so much. I mean, you just have you see all this opportunity, and you're like, oh my gosh, we got company X, Y, and Z want to work with us. Here's this all big 6-digit deals, and you start thinking, I want all of this. This is fantastic. This is success. And so you tend to sometimes bite off more than you can chew. You think, I mean, I was quite early, quite young in those days, and so you think success is as much about the money versus what you're going to grow and learn from, and what the end result will be, right? You think, this is great. I'm going to make some great coin. I can grow my company. So I think a big part of it is really coming to grips with the reality that those things aren't as important. I think I've just lost the question that you asked, but.
No, it's all right. But well, that's the thing. It's about just having a chat and really seeing your insight on your different perspectives on everything. And it's fantastic having you on the show. Like, I really appreciate coming on. And everyone at home, if you're listening, if you're getting value, if you could drop hashtag value, just so we know you are getting value, that would be absolutely fantastic. So, Greg, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, what was the difference between working with, say, like 500 companies in comparison to, say, other clients that you had? Was there much of a difference? Was it a different working environment, or was it all just another client on the books?
You start realizing that there's a level of bureaucracy, right? You start getting, you're working with larger teams from large organizations, and things are never, I mean, we at our Optimum, we're like a 3-4 person team, just like sprinting, doing, very iterative work. And it was very frustrating to get the feedback not being there, or to have to go through the approval processes. In a bigger company, you're not the priority, right? They've got 100 priorities or a dozen priorities. So you don't get that kind of attention that you would like on sort of a client to client perspective. And I think was very frustrating because when you're all ready to go and then all of a sudden you're just like, hurry up and wait. It's frustrating. And now you have time that you're not utilizing. And so that's certainly a frustration with working with larger companies. There's certainly things you learn to work around that, which is start dedicating, building your own technology so you have your own internal projects that you can focus on. And that's something that we always picked up quick. So we would always be developing new prototypes or new side projects because we would find ourselves with time sort of in these sort of waiting periods where we would focus that energy, which was really in the end a great advantage for these companies because it allowed us to really creatively pour ourselves into something and keep stimulated, which often found its way back into the work that we were doing for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great point there. So I guess just, moving forward in regards to, where you are now, and you're saying that you offer a lot of, because with Adelaide, you can see that there is definitely, future premise for growth and development in technologies and things like that. So with coming to Adelaide, what do you think is the next step? Because you said you offer a bit of consulting for, say, startups and mentorship and things like that. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, I came here very excited just to sort of, steep myself into the culture here. And there's a lot of things that I picked up very quickly, which I think is, I think really the startup scene in general is very young here. Like, I think there's only been like a year or so where you start to see proper incubators, accelerators, organizations primed to sort of help entrepreneurs with their ideas. So I think it's a great time to do that, but still, I notice when speaking to a lot of people who are looking at the materials or the learning or the education people are getting, a lot of the mindset is still stuck in this idea of a small business. And a startup is just not even close to what a small business is. So I think the way that people are approaching stuff, like I've done some interesting, mentoring, just meeting people and offering my input on things. But a lot of people are just going so far down the line, building product, no validation. They think it's a great idea. And oftentimes there's some great things about it, but very little effort put on the front end to make sure they're building the right product, not even sure who their audience is, not even sure how they might go to market with it. And these are things which, through the excitement of an idea, you want to get and build it out. But at the same time, you spend 9 months with a couple of guys building something and there's no market for it. You just 9 months of life that's something you don't want to waste. So I sort of saw this. So again, I saw this sort of small business to startup sort of thing not colliding. I saw a lot of people working on stuff, not really understanding the best way to do it. And then I started also seeing that there's very little opportunity outside of a lot of grant-based situations for people to raise the kind of money that gets to that next level. There's not a lot of what would be common in the States, in New York or in the Valley, in terms of seed money, angel money. I mean, if I need $100,000, $250,000 to really get to that next level, it's just there's just really nowhere to get that. And I feel like knowing that's the case, people have to be much more laser focused with regards to what they are building to be able to be very streamlined in how they build it and not waste resources. So it's been very interesting talking to people about how I can provide some of that contextual knowledge I have just from working in that space to be able to help people focus on the things that matter before they get too far down a road that's just going to be detrimental to their mental health ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like in Adelaide, VC funding and things like that, or angel funding, it's almost non-existent. Like there's a lot of stories where startup entrepreneurs will, in fact, seek out those over in the States just because that it's a much more easier way to leverage that money and that time, opposed to here, where it's a case of we really just are trying to reach out to as many people as possible, but it just doesn't happen. It's just not there. So the fact that you've been able to actually isolate that and realize and trying to bring the best value for that, to facilitate the information is fantastic.
And if I can really speak to people that may be watching that are strictly sort of from Adelaide, I mean, the biggest thing I think I've noticed is like the mindset has to change because there really is this whole tall poppy thing. And this idea also that, that there's a concern over what Sydney or Melbourne may be doing over what's here. I think it really holds people up. And this idea of how to grow stuff, how to commercialize stuff, there's like amazing technology here. Like there's people doing mind-bending things and machine learning and AI and a lot of deep tech space. But the idea to commercialize that, to do a tech transfer, or how to productize that, I see a massive gap. Like how to do business development, how to turn this into a marketable idea, how to sell it. I think the idea that, I can pick up a phone and call London as easy as I can Melbourne, for a lot of people, like they don't really realize that we're on a global stage. I mean, I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of your community gets that, but there are a lot of people here that don't realize that you don't worry about what's going on in Sydney. You can leapfrog that and go right to the world stage and focus on selling marketable technology to countries that have 10 times the population here with a much more better mindset of adoption. And I think those are the kind of things that I feel like I enjoy helping people get out of themselves, because there's just this ceiling that people don't realize, thinks that's there, that if they can break through that mindset, there's incredible things that can be done here in Adelaide, and I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing with the community, there really is this limiting mindset, because so many will focus on Melbourne or Sydney. For everyone listening at home that's from the States, Melbourne and Sydney are two of our biggest cities. And it really is such a common thing where they say, we want to validate this idea, but we'd rather validate it, say, over in Melbourne or Sydney, which is still good. But there's no international presence. There's no international level to just, leapfrog, as you said, to go straight to, say, the US or somewhere with a much larger audience. And shifting that mindset is so important, which I do think over the next few years will happen. And, it's fantastic that, Craig, people like yourself are really helping with that, because it is such a limiting thought process. And so to push past those mental barriers is going to just create just astronomical effects from it. And we're really going to help bring Adelaide to more of a global level and global scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think it only takes a couple really global successes here from Adelaide. The way that I think Canva is a great example coming out of Sydney that really created a mass consumer product that's a global something that's accepted. I think there's just so much focus. There's so much academia here. There's so much stuff related to defense. There's so much stuff that I feel isn't consumer facing, that hasn't scaled there. But even some of the conversations I've had with people that are in kind of like the deep learning space, the things they're working on, through a conversation, you can kind of twist it and say, well, look how this could turn into a total consumer product that is likely something that Facebook would want to buy. And it's like this kind of thinking that people don't see what they're building could actually be turned into something that could address tens or hundreds of millions of people, that I find really, really, really interesting. I think that's definitely something that's a mindset thing. And I think if there's more people here to prompt people to play around with these ideas and give them an opportunity. But again, that comes with funding, right? There's got to be ways for people to know that they can focus for 6 months or 9 months with a lean team and have enough funds to get that to that state, because without that, it's tough going. I mean, people are happy here. People are very complacent. It's hard to get people to actually side hustle as it is. And I've learned, and I get that, like, it's nice to sit and have Coopers out in the garden. Like, I get it,
Yeah, it is. And the lifestyle here as well, that's one big thing, where it is such an easygoing lifestyle. And so some do get very complacent, and it is dangerous being almost just stagnant, because you're comfortable and you're happy, and it's, pushing those boundaries and pushing the envelope. And it really is just a big mindset within Adelaide that I've found is something you've absolutely targeted, and you're spot on there. Like with the podcast, for instance, initially I started that and I went straight to the States. I had zero Adelaide audience, just because getting on an international scale was going to grow it quicker. And now I've actually done a backtrack, and now I'm growing the Adelaide audience as well, and the Australian audience. So I kind of leapfrog, like day one, I kind of just skipped Adelaide. But, and it's just about having that mindset to try and grow, that vaster audience and move forward in different levels of business. And, you offering this value here today is fantastic, especially for those listening in Adelaide, and even for those in the States, just to learn how it is done on the other side of the world, where not every country is the same, and that some we do want to move forward, but we don't have the thought process or we have those limiting beliefs where we think, okay, we're moving forward with, say, tall poppy syndrome, we're only going to get so far and leave it there. It's fantastic that, this is now becoming a real thing where people are bringing it up, like people are actually mentioning it. And Craig, for instance, with the mayor of Adelaide, he's coming on the podcast next month. And I was asking Adelaide, like, what questions you want me to ask him? And some were saying, well, what startup processes are there, or what support systems are there for the Adelaide entrepreneur space? Because there really isn't much. And so it's great to be able to just bring all that together. It's like a big family.
Yeah, no, for sure. What percentage, Ross, of your audience is American, more or less? Or
so the podcast itself, so I'd probably say about 80%.
Okay.
However, for the Adelaide base, that's really something quite new, but it was with only a week of deciding to grow the Adelaide audience that I managed to get the mayor coming on. And also, have you heard of Fresh 92.7, the radio station?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So Troy Sinclair, he's actually coming on. He's the Fresh 92.7 general manager, so he's going to come on in Feb as well. So, it was only a week, and I thought, you know what, I might as well. So I've just tried to just get as many big Adelaide names as possible to come on the show to now grow the Adelaide audience. And I'm so appreciative that you've come on as well, because to see it from, say, a Canadian and US base entrepreneur to now come to Adelaide space, it really almost amalgamates the two together, and it's a fantastic bridge to just learn from both ends of the world and you know, your experiences.
Yeah, I'm definitely a good crossover because I'm coming right from that world. I mean, it took me a while to slow down. I mean, for sure. I mean, it's definitely a different place here. But, so I won't focus too much on maybe what's happening here versus, you know, what can add value for everyone. And certainly, I don't know how you roll with these things, but should anyone have any questions as they're just listening in general, I mean, I'd love Q&A as much as anything, because Q&A.
Absolutely. To be honest, I'm surprised. I mean, we're half hour in. We haven't had any live questions yet. So anyone, listening in, we love some live questions. Hit us up. Like, let's not ruin this streak of getting live questions. So if you are listening at home, you are getting value. #value. If you could drop that for us, that'd be fantastic. If you do have any live questions for Craig, please let us know, because we really want to hear. Yeah, man. So let's move forward. So, Craig, I guess moving forward from that, what value do you have to offer in regards to your industry, in regards to moving forward for, say, the startup consultancy and mentoring, for those that are trying to build their business, whether they're from the US or Australia? You know, what do you recommend for them to really start? You said validating the audience, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's just say they're at that level where they have validated the audience, and now they don't know what to do next. What do you recommend?
Well, I mean, my first thing would be, you know, are they validating it really in depth? And I think that's the one thing a lot of people have an idea. I think you have to get out there and push in front of as many people as possible. I think one of the greatest things you can do is before you even develop a product, we're talking about technology products here as a startup. You've got an idea of who you actually want to target. You're going out there, you're asking the right questions. This is where I see a lot of people start jumping into building prototypes and building applications and building, you know, the MVP. And I think that there's a step before that you can do, which would even be much more effective. And that's like simply using a keynote or a PowerPoint and just lay this thing out as a mock application. And if you're an Apple user using Keynote, it has a lot of interactive stuff where you can design very simple sort of pages. They click through. It's like a hypertext type of thing where you can almost fake an experience and put it in someone's hands and have them walk through it. And to me, getting that validation of how they feel using it or what their response is so valuable before you actually go into building product. And you can do that stuff in the course of a weekend. You can build a prototype in Keynote and start actually putting it in front of people and say, what do you think of this? Well, yeah, you click on this and it shows you this, and you can sketch it out. It helps you figure out the flow. It helps you get immediate feedback. And that's before you've even worried about programming it, because a lot of people, even people I meet here, are not technical founders. They're not people that have the technical skills to be able to do stuff. And if that's the case, you really have to be careful, because I think one of the big things I see is people don't get the team kind of put together before they get ahead of themselves with regards to having a team, and being held hostage by someone that is a technology developer that's not a founder on some level. I mean, I've seen so many people just give up on things like that. So I think once you validate, that's the greatest thing. I think the next thing to do is to start figuring out, which a lot of people don't spend time, is who are my partners in something like this? So who are the people that aren't my direct consumers, but have a group of people that are very similar to mine? So if I'm targeting, let's say it was a health application, I know a certain audience I have. Who are the people that are in my space, in my community, that represent a company where the same types of people are looking to them for a complementary set of services or offerings? And start finding out who those people are, and start networking, and start figuring out ways that you can work with these people. Because one of the fastest ways to grow or to get validation is the opportunity to be able to put your idea in front of these people. These people have the audience that you actually want. You now have an opportunity to get that in front of those people, or better yet, figure out ways to do an actual joint venture and affiliate where people can, you know, a simple affiliate thing if you're selling a product is the ability to say, hey, listen, you've got a market of people I want. How about you can have 80% of everything we make from your audience? So you're giving them an incentive to promote it. And now you're driving know, the real people to start validating your product when you start off. I think these are the ways that I would be doing stuff. It's very low hanging fruit. And it's important for you to be connecting with these people, because that is a part of the ecosystem, of the culture, of the community that you want to target. And I think anything you can do to embed yourself into where these people that are your consumers, your customers, clients are hanging out, where they're spending time, that's what I would spend all of my time doing while I'm doing the product, to really get inside of their minds. What forums are they going to get information? What websites do they visit? What blogs do they go to? And you should be going to these blogs and adding considerable value and starting being a part of that larger ecosystem. And that should be something I feel that you should be doing in tandem as you work with your own audience, because it puts you at a much better position in terms of awareness from a larger population, but you really understand the mindset, because too many people don't really understand what does a person really want out of a product. They think of it in terms of features and not really the end. And so one of the greatest things, questions I would ask people is to keep asking why, like 5 times. Like, if you think they want to do it because they want to save time, well, why do they want to save time? Oh, it's because they want to spend more time with their kids. Well, why do they want to spend more time with their kids? Well, and just keep driving down to you really get to what are they really trying to do, and then tailor your market to that. And that's where you'll find you start getting your real, that real tribe thing going, where people really have, in essence, a connection with what you're doing.
Yeah, there's some great points there. And yeah, the whole ask why 5 times, I think that is an absolute phenomenal point to make, because then you can really dive down to figure out exactly why you're targeting a specific audience and how you can help them, and then kind of reverse engineer it that way. So I think that is a fantastic point to make.
Right. And I see that Veronica asked a question about, regards to 80%. I mean, I just threw that out there. I mean, there's been times where I think it's appropriate to give them 100%, because if you have 0 customers whatsoever, and there's a certain base of people that can start this process off for you, and you can start getting feedback, do it at whatever it costs for you not to lose money. I mean, you have nothing to lose but potential customers. Once that deal's done, if you're doing your job and serving them, then you've now got a lifetime value of this person, which would be worth something. And I think too many people get caught up in, well, I'm not giving someone. I think that's just the wrong attitude. I think in the early days, until you've established yourselves, whether it's 20%, 80%, or in some cases 100%. I mean, if they're going to give you 1,000 people walking through your door using your product, and it costs you nothing, but you don't make anything, I would say that having 1,000 customers in your pocket is worth a lot. So I think definitely those
that's
are the
still
ways
a win.
that I would look at starting to do business off the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not about why should I give this person X? It's about, well, it's a business exchange. I mean, you're getting something for that. So it's not a case of you're losing out on anything. And yeah, even the great point of, if you're getting 1,000 customers but you don't make anything on it, that's still a win. That's still valuable to have, because to have 1,000-person audience is great. Like, it's, that's a good starting point, and you can definitely monetize from 1,000 people. You can monetize
indeed.
from 500 people. Like,
I mean, 1,000 people could be all you
yeah.
need. If you have the right product, that could be enough for you to have an income without doing anything else. I think that's the other
Absolutely.
thing.
I mean,
it's a good point. I think, a lot of people, certainly in America, I mean, there's this mindset of entitlement for sure, where it's like, I'm going to be the next Snapchat, I'm going to be the next billion-dollar company. And people really have this mentality. Like, even people with no skills are thinking like this. And I try so often for people just to think, what do you actually need? And, how do you focus on that first 1,000 people? I mean, if you have a service that provides incredible value and it's $10 a month, if you have 1,000 people, that's $10,000 a month. That's more money than about 90% of the population makes. I mean, people don't think about that. They think, $1 million is, I think they say 450,000 is, that's the low end of the 1%. That's where the 1% starts. And people just idea, like, I want to make $1 million. It's like, well, then you're already well into the 1%. And I think that thinking has to go away, because if you can be working from home on a scalable business that's providing residual income with only 1,000 people, I would focus on doing that, and then using social and using all the amazing ways that you can really growth hack and drive traffic to something when you have it going, to be able to drive your business from there, because $10,000 a month is awesome. And people should be thinking that that's awesome versus this idea of I need $1 million.
Definitely. It's those milestones, and even getting to 10,000 is a great milestone, because then you move forward from that. But everyone's kind of jumping to that big number, and then it's like, oh, I want to hit that. And it's like, well, have you even worked out how you're going to get there? So I think that's a really good point to make, where it's just a case of trying to do the little milestones until you hit the big one. And even that, the 1%, like, you don't need the 1%, because I think it's after 120,000 roughly of earning. Once you've earned that, your happiness doesn't increase anymore. Like, for every dollar you earn to happiness levels, they did the study, and don't quote me on the exact stats, but they said there was something like 120 grand plus, your happiness doesn't increase anymore.
No, and
in comparison to
And I think
the
to the point about, when I built up the team and realized who I was spending time with, I think more people need to really realize that time is worth way more than money. And I think it takes some people, living longer to do that. I've had a lot of decades behind me to be able to realize that, but I would rather get paid enough where I don't have to do anything, but have all my time to myself. If you can pay your rent and whatever it's cost to feed and just look after your family on a base level, which is not a lot of money. I mean, you probably do it for $5,000 a month, especially in a place like Adelaide. That's
definitely very cheap.
If you can hit that nut, but you have all your time to yourself to create new things or to grow that, that's a much better place to be than doing a hustle, working 80 hours to make double that, as far as I'm concerned, right? I think time is something that's where the ideas are born. That's where the new products are created. That's where happiness is found when you spend time doing something you love, not the hustle. So certainly I couldn't agree more that money should not be something that people chase. It should be, how do I provide as much value to people that brings me joy? If you can figure out what that equation is, you're likely to be having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not about the monetary figure. It's like, what are you willing to invest 10 to 12 hours a day into that you actually enjoy doing? And I think that's the biggest thing there. And once you start to leverage that, you can take your foot off the accelerator, and then you don't have to hustle as much. And then it's, well, what do you want to invest your time in for, say, 6 hours a day and 5 and whatever else? And if you get, staff doing things for you, and that's it. It's just about figuring out what works best for you and what you're happiest in. So it's not all about that dollar figure. And yeah, it's something that, especially with, say, in Adelaide, it's a case of, we hear about these either super success stories, or I was having coffee with someone earlier today and we're talking about it, where there's either the super successes or there's heaps of people absolutely smashing it, but you don't hear about them.
Right.
They're just kind of behind the scenes. And in Adelaide, especially because of the I guess the way everyone is, it's kind of, it's strange where it is shifting, but many years ago and up until now, if you're doing really well, there's almost this resentment, which in the entrepreneurial space is the complete opposite, because it's a case of, well, we want to build each other up and grow as a community. And I found that, especially the last few years, it's starting to decrease, but there used to always be such resentment for those in Adelaide that had made it, or, if they're successful, it's like, oh, well, what's he doing, with this business or driving this car? And it's like, well, it's really not the mindset to have. It's fantastic that it is decreasing. And then now there's more of a community to help build and grow, one another. But it really is about mindsets and limiting beliefs.
But I think to your point here, I guess that falls under kind of this idea of tall poppy, right? I mean, it's like, don't get too big. And, I see it here, and I don't want to, single out certain companies, but there's companies that are doing amazing things, that are producing, like $100 million in revenue. But, as far as the press is concerned, it's as much, there's not as much love given to some things here that I think should be given the love. Simply because of, the way that people are. And I think, I definitely see that. I think that's one of the things I'm hoping to see, because there's not a lot of offline community here, which is certainly essential and a big part of New York. There was a sense of community. You could go out every night of the week and there'd be groups from a technology commonality or startup commonality. We could go share your ideas, spend time with other founders, learn. And here I found that that's the one thing that's missing the most, is this idea of events. And where do I go offline to be able to connect with people and have the kind of conversations that we're having, but over a pint or something? And I think that's important no matter where you are, is to get out of your own head and to get with other people, because often it can be a very lonely struggle. And I think that's something that's not discussed a lot with people that have businesses, is the internal struggle, because no one can understand. Your partners can understand, your kids can understand, your friends that are, have stable jobs, they can understand, and they don't want to hear about you bitching and complaining either. Generally, that gets old really fast. So having a support network is a really important thing, and I think that's something that certainly Adelaide could use. But anyone that's anywhere in the world that's doing this, certainly do your best to find places where you can go and have conversations like we're having with real people in real time, in real physical spaces, because that is essential to mental health, but it's also how you grow your own sort of mastermind network of people that can assist you in all the different stages of growing your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And using Adelaide again as an example, there is an ecosystem map that you can look at, and it's all these squares, and it will basically say, oh, this is the meetup group for this and meetup group for that. But it's still not structured enough to be a real support system. Like, even with that in place, there's still so much feedback in regards to, well, where do I go for support for this or for that? And I think that that's something that Adelaide could really use, which is fantastic that you've really even noticed that. For only being here 3 months, like to pick that up is, phenomenal. So I completely agree with you that having an ecosystem wherever it is in the world is so important to help everyone just grow and learn and move forward. Because at the end of the day, if 9 out of 10 of you are doing phenomenally, but then like one of you is struggling in, you say, your support system, you don't want to see that. Like, you want to help bring them up to your level and learn from others that are a higher level than you. And it's all about that continual growth, opposed to just being a big fish in a small pond or whatever else.
Yeah, and it's definitely a matter of collaboration over competition. I think anyone that's still stuck with a mindset that you're competing against other people, you're just losing right off the bat. I mean, you can't care what anyone else is doing because no one is building the same thing that you are. You may think that your competitor is doing, but they're not. They have a different idea of where it's going than you do. And I think people just have to focus on what they're doing and try to be even more collaborative with who they think. I mean, technically, whoever you think is a competitor has the people that you want to reach out to. So it's probably smarter to think, how can we actually work together and serve the same people to both of our benefits? But I mean, the States is a very competitive place, and you're going to get a lot more of that mentality not working. But I've seen the most success personally and through friends and people I know to see that to great effect when you figure out a way to work together and collaborate, even if you see them as a competitor.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to before, where you were saying, well, even if it was a case of maybe not necessarily a competitor, but just getting their audience to come on, say 1,000 people, and not earn anything from it, but to then get that audience. So if you do reach out to a competitor and you can somehow work together, like there was a platform I built a while ago in regards to helping Australians find personal trainers, and I had a coffee with someone that had built the same platform, and we realized that if we had just stumbled across one another 6 months prior, we could have combined our efforts and made a monster platform. But instead it was, doing our own thing, the solopreneur as such. And then we had the coffees and we're like, well, shit, and we're great friends now. Like, we caught up with a coffee the other week, and it was just a case of, it happened, and we try to figure out, well, how do we work together in this? Because a collaboration is going to work so much better, because then we're focusing essentially two people's time or two businesses' time together, opposed to just spreading ourselves thin and competing. So sometimes competing, especially in the earlier stages, if you're trying to compete against another business, you're wasting time that you could be leveraging to grow both businesses. For sure.
And in fact, I mean, there's a lot of stories where, like you said, with you and your friend, where people have had that same conversation and said, we should merge, and let's just, maybe we should partner up and form a bigger entity and fold one into the other. I mean, there's lots of cases of that happening. A lot of people don't have the mental, whatever, to ever address that, because they think of it as like, oh, it's losing or it's not my goal. But ultimately, if your goal is serving people and providing that kind of value, those kind of things make sense. So I think it's just always being open to as many things that, I mean, I think if I started off earlier saying that a lot of my successes come from opening myself up to situations that made me uncomfortable. And it's only through those things that new opportunities sort of expose themselves to yourself, that you grow, to you learn. I think it's just too easy to be, especially in a place, the land of plenty here, being complacent and stuff. But that complacency doesn't lead to growth. It doesn't lead to personal growth, business growth. It leads to contentment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're really looking to get more out of life, it's essential that you push yourself outside your comfort zone. Yeah, definitely. Because pushing that envelope and pushing yourself outside the comfort zone, there is that level of vulnerability there, because you don't know what to expect. You don't know if you're going to, trip along the way. But it's just a case of, that's what helps develop you mentally and from a business perspective and also a personal perspective. Always trying to push yourself further is going to be how you grow. So there's really nothing wrong. And we've all had, failures in one way or another. And take that platform I just spoke about, for instance. I don't really use that anymore. Just because it didn't grow to the point I wanted it to. So I just moved forward, but I learned from it. It was a fantastic learning experience. Absolutely. And I wouldn't have the knowledge of what I have now in that industry if I didn't start. No. Yeah. There you go. Prove the point yourself. Yeah, absolutely. So Craig, I'd love to know, so say now that you're in the consulting space, especially for those in the startup. So how is it that those are going to be able to reach out to you, whether it's from Adelaide or if anyone online? Do you do any online consulting as well? Or is it pure face-to-face? Yeah, I mean, consulting is probably the wrong word, because a lot of it right now is I'm just more mentoring. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm just really fascinated being able to connect with people, learn what they're doing, and because I think I have a different perspective than a lot of people here locally, I've just enjoyed being able to connect with those people, share ideas, and even the few people that I've had a chance to do that with, I've already seen them see much greater success or alignment to going the right way. And I enjoy that, because I think there's so much to be, there's just so much opportunity. I really feel like, honestly, that what's happening in this part of the world is just a conflux of amazing things happening in the next 5 or 10 years. Is going to be amazing, but the mindset thing has to be there. And so I've just been getting out there and just meeting people, and I'm always happy to talk to people. I enjoy it. I like helping people.
It's fun. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no,
you get to do it through a larger platform, and these kind of conversations are certainly adding value on different levels to different people every time you do one, which is amazing. Because I mean, I wish I could find a way to scale it better, because you can only have so many coffees before you start meeting people and doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And Craig, I really appreciate coming on the show. Like, this has been phenomenal. It's been absolutely great chatting with you. Everyone at home, if you're getting value, if you could drop #value, really appreciate that. So Craig, for everyone listening in at home, how do they get in contact with you so you can, help them in one way or another with their business?
For sure. And I guess I'd be remorse not to talk about the platform I have, because it might be useful for
Please, let's get into it. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really come up, but we've created this platform, Loop Labs, which is kind of like music making superpowers for everyone. So sort of taking away any complexities to making music, making accessible to anyone with no music experience. We've got more than 500,000 members on there from age 7 to 70. It's a fun platform. Wow. It's called looplabs.com. If you're interested in making music, you got kids that want to make music, you need music for some of your content, it's an amazing place to go. And that would be probably the best place to meet me, just Craig, CRAIG at Loop Labs. That's the email, and that's probably the most direct way to get a hold of me and start a conversation for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'd like to drop your email in the comments below afterwards as well, that'd be fantastic, so everyone can get in touch with you. Because, the Loop Labs didn't really come up all that much, because as everyone at home is aware, it's not very structured chat. We more just have a bit of fun and talk some shit and learn about you. And
for sure.
So yeah, I mean, with the Loop Labs, just before we wrap things up, I'd love to hear more about Loop Labs itself, if you wanted to dive into that in a bit more detail.
I mean, like I mentioned before, it was really a result of sort of building all these one-off campaigns for all these top brands to have music as part of their marketing campaigns. But decided that it was not doing justice for the millions of people that were using these things to have a place where it could be home. So realized that the opportunity to create an actual platform as a hub, as an ecosystem for all these people to go to and build community, that's what we wanted to do. So it's just a little over 2 years old. I said, we just passed 500,000 members. And it's just a rich social place full of positivity where you can make music, remix music, and really focused on a lot of ways that we can really help the music industry moving forward by empowering the legality of remixing, but also definitely with this explosion of content like this, like there's people creating content at a blistering scale. Online video is like just going through the roof, but a lot of people need music for their content, whether it's for their Instagram, whether it's for the video that they create. And your choices are, I'll take illegal content and probably get it taken down, or I have to pay for some cheesy stock music, and very little things in between. But people have been able to create video. They're able to create all sorts of media. But if you were to ask someone, hey, where do I go to be able to create music, or how do I create music? Most people don't have a clue. It's like this weird black box of mystery they don't understand. So we really built this platform to serve people to understand that music making can be simple, it can be fun, and it can be collaborative. So really that's sort of the main impetus behind it, is to empower people to be able to create music as part of their media tool set, the way they create every other piece of amazing content they work with.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, Craig, thank you so much for coming on the show, mate. This has been an absolute blast. I've really enjoyed it. We've got to get a coffee in person as well. We're definitely going to do that at some point.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Yeah,
absolutely.
So everyone at home, Craig Swann, thank you so much for coming on the show. And everyone at home, thank you so much for investing your time with us here today. So, Craig, I'll jump on the DM in a sec just to chat with you, and we'll tee some things up. But I love chatting with you today. Thank you so much for your time.
Cheers, man.
I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.